I would like to call the Committee of the Whole meeting to order at 8:53 p.m. Present are council members Broussard, Williamson, Schuman, Limpert, Heeman, Glassburn, Kelly, the mayor, our finance director, human resources director, planning and development director, our council clerk, and our guests this evening. At the request of the administration, this committee of the whole meeting is being called so all of council can receive an update on CARES Act funding. While the administration has requested we meet to get an update, council also needs to decide shortly if we wish to move forward with streaming equipment to stream the meetings and/or have additional programs to help engage our community with our meetings and the work of city council and our city business. Hopefully this update will provide information that council has requested regarding the spending of this money and also to help us make decisions about what we wish to do moving forward. I plan to call an additional committee of the whole meeting prior to our October 6th meeting to get a general consensus from council on if we want to proceed with streaming our meetings upon our return to City Hall, and also if we want to purchase a program such as the one that we saw demoed a few weeks ago, that was People Speak. I have asked our clerk to provide us information by the end of this week on costs so that everyone has time to consider it prior to the October 6th meeting. He did tell me, for the context of this meeting, to expect a cost about like $10,000 to $13,000 in CARES Act money if it's available to council to use. And if council wants to proceed with both streaming and something like People Speak. I'm going to ask the mayor and the finance director to give us their updates on the CARES Act funding. And then after their updates, council will be able to ask any questions that you might have at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President Jones. I think I'll start it out. However, I have a previous engagement at 9 o'clock. So, Carrie, do you think it's possible that you have all the numbers? So I'll start out the statement and maybe stick around for a little bit. Can you handle the rest of it?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. All right. Well, guidance has continued to evolve regarding eligible uses for the CARES Act fund. Recently, this has included expenditures for personnel that were diverted to a substantially different use due to COVID-19, and for those who are supporting the response to COVID-19, in addition to supporting our emergency response. This approach of wage reimbursement would have the added benefit of improving the city's budget outlook for 2021. This payroll topic has been a frequent discussion point among state and local leaders in discussions with officials from the U.S. Department of Treasury. Future federal guidance may clarify these requirements. In the meanwhile, the city will maintain detailed documentation that will support the use of these funds for employees' payroll. Go ahead, Carrie.
Director, could you please unmute your mic?
That always helps, doesn't it? Sorry. Chuck, were you able to provide the coronavirus related grant funds spreadsheet to council?
I was, and you asked me if I could share it, so I have it available if you want me to share
Okay.
it.
If people want to share it or if they just want to look at it, that's fine too. Whatever your pleasure is, Madam President. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, I'd prefer that Chuck share the screen. Thank you.
Okay, great. First off, the first part is the round 1 and round 2 of the funding from the CARES Act, totaling $1,144,868.28, and those are the funds that we already have in our possession and also our budget. And when I've been trying to keep up the spreadsheet for all the items, the major items that we're utilizing the funds for. The lobby and first floor public health improvements are the first part, and the engineering associated with that. The touchless apparatus for the restrooms citywide and the related hand dryers. The original cost we had quoted was $92,659, but and also the electricity or the electrical that we had to run for all the electric hand dryers was $25,000. But we've come to a conclusion that people still want some sort of paper, so we're not going to put we're going to put hand dryers with that are paperless, and also some that are touchless but paperless in some restrooms, and then some are just going to be the either or. So there'll be a lot less electrical involved, and also it brings the cost down to the $62,316.90. So we kind of picked up some funds available there. The PPE and cleaning supplies, and this is citywide, is up to $40,457. I have $16,000 reserved for the masks for residents. I don't know what that final amount will be. And I didn't know what the name of the software was that you had demoed that I had was in the committee with you. But I put the live meeting streaming and agenda management spelled wrong in there. I had it at 11.6, but there's still funding available. We can make it whatever that amount is. We also decided on getting 4 portable temperature scanners. They're about $3,000 a piece, but then someone doesn't have to stand there and take everyone's temperature every time they walk into the building. It records it. The mayor's administrative assistant had demos on several different types of temperature scanners, and this was the one that when they did it, it was accurate and it didn't fail as many times as some of the other ones did. So they felt that this was good models. And the intent is to have one at City Hall, one at the rec center, one at the senior center, I believe, and then one that can be used for events or what have you, or if one breaks down. So that's why there are 3, and maybe Springvale too, if this goes on into next spring as well. Then we don't have a lot of outside services involved in that, which is consulting mostly, or cleaning, which we opted to get the cleaning sprayers ourselves and do some of the cleaning, the ongoing cleaning and maintenance of our building. And then the unemployment, I have set aside $89,000 for the 50% of unemployment that the state is giving us 50% of credit back. And then the other 50% that we have to pay, we're allowed to apply to the CARES Act funding. So they're a couple months behind, so it's we don't have an exact number. We don't know how many. I feel like most people are back, but some of the part-time people at the rec weren't brought back, or at Springvale. So I think there might be some people that are still collecting unemployment. In phase 2 of the CARES Act funding, this is from the fire chief. I had met with a lot of the different divisions, and Kim Lieber did, and the mayor too, and we discussed a ton of different projects, but the timing is still such that it is inhibitive to doing any more projects. Like someone had mentioned, the jail cells, the restrooms, and some of the other areas there, and something in the service garage or the service department. And there were a lot of different items discussed, even so far as the fire chief and his crew asked if we could get a squad, but we can't for two reasons. One is that we won't get it in time, and but the other is that it was already budgeted for in the March 27th budget, and that is one of the requirements, that it could not be budgeted in that at that time. So these items are from the Fire Safety Committee, the N95 fit testers, the LifePak cardiac monitor, the Lucas chest compression system, the LifePak CR2 defibrillator. I'm still waiting on some prices for the suction units and the UV disinfection torch. They have a screening kiosk for each station. I don't know what the shoe cleaning for the COVID is, but the other, which I thought was a good idea, was that they came up with, was replacing our AEDs, which are all to be replaced. I know the police department received grants, received free ones from, I think, Cleveland Clinic or UH or something like that, but they're still in our buildings. And because one of the symptoms and side effects that could happen with COVID is heart issues, we felt it important to make sure that all our AEDs are up to date. And so that those costs are probably about 160,000 with the awaiting the other prices. So between that and what we've already spent above or encumbered, we're pretty close to exhausting the CARES Act monies for the first and second tranche. The third round potential is in the House, Ohio House right now. And it again is like $1,142,000. I didn't put the exact number in there, but it's close. And this is where I went through and I started trying to come up with methodologies for being able to utilize the CARES Act monies to replace wages and benefits that we did not derive the benefit that was intended to when we budgeted for them. So we went through and I talked with a lot of different divisions and came up with for the service department and the service union, like in wastewater, they were on a 2-week on and 2-week off shift. So with that, they were home but getting paid, so we weren't deriving the benefit of what we had in the budget for them to do. So those are legitimate expenditures that could be reimbursed for wages and benefits. And then there were also, not the fourth item, but the fifth item is police dispatch and police secretaries and corrections. The police department also did something similar, but they like gave people COVID time when they were fully staffed, so that they could get more people out of the building, so that they were at their minimum staffing and they weren't all there spreading potential germs around. So they gave people COVID time. And that is the fifth line item there. Then the fire and dispatch and the bottom item estimated for police. This is for the squad runs that they determined had potential to COVID. When this first happened, they were required to change their dispatch and ask, the COVID questions that we all get asked a million times when we go places. And if they answered in certain ways, they were marked as a COVID possible in the dispatch system. So we were able to go back and run reports that showed of the COVID possible to the total runs. It averages 15% Obviously, during March and April and May, it was a lot higher. It was like running 30%, and it's going off now. It's about 5%, 4%. So it has dwindled by week, but it's still a legitimate utilization of statistics to apply to these wages and benefits. Then the other items are the temperature taker and building maintenance in the recreation fund. They have additional part-time people that they brought in specifically to do additional cleaning. And their regular people are doing it as well. I mean, it's a large facility. And then the the building maintenance for the police, fire, and city hall have people allocated toward that, and that's an estimated amount for their share of the wages and benefits that are COVID related. And the police is just estimated because I wasn't going to include them, but when the mayor was talking about clarification, the U.S. Treasury just issued them yesterday, and I got copies today, that they finally did very clearly, and well, as clearly as the government can get, right? Clearly stated that wages and benefits for safety personnel are deemed to be COVID related, even if they were in the original budget. They're deemed to be. And so you can pretty much, you can say, well, they're all related, but so we could utilize the third amount completely and entirely reimbursing the general fund and some other funds like rec and sewer revenue fund, but mostly the general fund for wages and benefits up to that $1.1 million easily. And I just took the budgeted safety forces, which would include dispatch, corrections, police, fire, and the safety department. And I allocated for 9.5 months the state of emergency at 15%, which is what the average calls were. And I mean, that takes us to well above that amount as well. So I feel confident that we have the third tranche covered with wages and benefits. And these reimbursements will help us. I mean, we're down more than 1.1 million in revenue. So this will assist our budget in helping us for next year so that we're in a better situation for next year.
Thank you, Director. Council members, questions? Councilwoman Williamson.
Thank you, Madam President. Director Kopfer, I have a couple of questions, and I don't know if I should direct those to you, but in regard to the portable temperature scanners, there are only 4 listed. Now, I know you mentioned that one would go to City Hall. Are these for the public or for everybody going into the doors, including employees?
I believe that it's for everybody going into the doors.
So no one's going to be allowed to use side entrances or into the building?
I'm not sure how that is going to function, but and we wanted portable ones so that we could utilize them for special events and stuff too, not just attach them into the building. So that was why.
Right. I just at 3,000 a piece, and we're going to have one sitting for special events, and then we have only one at the rec. We don't know how many people are going to be going through the doors there. We don't have any at our offsites with police and fire and service. I'm just concerned that, while we're trying to take necessary steps in the purchase of these, I just don't see them being utilized across the board. I mean, if we're getting these systems, then our employees should be forced to go through these, or required to, I shouldn't say forced, but they should be required to go through them. Every single person, you know, including the mayor.
Madam Chair.
Director.
I don't know the answer to that. So I'll have to get back to you. But when I said an extra one, I don't know, maybe I misspoke that it was going to be sitting on a shelf. So, but you're right, the police station doesn't have one, and the service department doesn't, and wastewater. So there are three
And
that I can think of. Well, fire has 2 kiosks that they have that are on the spreadsheet here. They're doing automated temperature screening kiosks in their facilities.
Both of them, both stations?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. My last question would be relative to air purifiers. As crazy it may sound, has there been consideration in getting one for not just the public facilities like City Hall and the police department, but what about the rec center and Springvale? I mean, has that been discussed or talked about?
I know that we got one for City Hall in the improvement project, the public health improvement project. For the 3 units, it was like 26,000, and there are 3 units of HVAC units on our roof that cover City Hall. So that 26,000 covers those 3. We did discuss them, and I feel like there is something in the rec center already in their HVAC, but I'd have to check that, and I don't know about the rest of them.
Is it possible that we could, you know, consider that as part of this project? I mean, I would like to see, at least with the rec center too, is getting up to date, you know, more current air purifiers. I don't know, you know, how good the ones they are now, or, you know, if there's other models out there that might be more effective. I mean, it's just a suggestion.
Are they electrostatic air cleaners or air purifiers?
It's the new cleaners that are supposed to help with, you know, these infectious diseases and whatnot. So
I mean, I'm excited because I have a lot of allergies, so I'm excited that City Hall is getting them. So I will ask the mayor, and we'll get back to you on that. I know we talked about it, but I'm not sure if it's, I'll have to see.
And could
It
you
might have been
also,
timing too as well.
Madam President, if I may.
Councilwoman.
Director, thank you. Director, if you could also find out the question as to exactly how these portable scanners are going to be utilized, and if the volume of people going in and out of the rec center would be sufficient for one, or if they're going to require 2.
Yeah, I'll ask the mayor that as well.
I'd
Since they're,
appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. And Marie, you're nodding your head. Are you writing this down too?
Yes.
Awesome.
I have.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, thank you, directors. Clerk Massarolo, if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to ask council to send you additional questions in general that we want answered. So if you wouldn't mind also keeping tabs on the questions that council members are asking at this meeting, that would be helpful. Thank you. Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I did just want to ask Councilwoman Williamson, did you have a number of those temperature units that you were thinking would be sufficient? I mean, I agree with you, but rather than just ask the mayor, should we consider more? Did you have a thought as to like how many total you thought would be useful or helpful for us? Because I agree that I usually like use the side door to come in City Hall, and sometimes it, I mean, well, right now we can't use the front entrance, but yeah. So employees might be using that side entrance. Guests, of course, would use the front entrance. The rec center, you're right, probably has a pretty high volume. I would think at events at Springville, I don't know if they would want to do that there, but they could, or a bride might, or someone might ask. So did you have a number? Were you thinking that we should see if it's possible to have how many?
I mean, I think that would be up to the administration as to where they would put them, because I know the police station has a number of, they have their main lobby. I don't know how they want to deal with some of that in and out. And if fire is already covered, but we also have rec, wastewater, Springvale, depending on which side entrance, you might need two, one for the clubhouse and one for the ballroom. Because I don't know what these units exactly look like, so I don't know how easily transportable they are.
Madam Chair,
Director Kupfer?
I know that the mayor's administrative assistant has like information on them. Would council like to get that to kind of get a better idea of what that is along
Yeah.
with the number?
Yes,
Okay.
and Director, if you could see if there's a volume discount available, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And before I get to Director Gallo, just following up with Councilwoman Williamson's questions about the buildings, Director Kopfer, Director Lieber, Director Gallo, I forgot, so please remind me, the lobby to City Hall that's being renovated, the entrance there, is that a hard stop entrance then for people coming in? So we're actually going to utilize a safety function now, and there'll be a hard stop there?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, Director Gallo, please go ahead.
Thank you. To Councilwoman Williamson's point, she brought this issue up when COVID first started, when the building was shut down and we were taking temperatures. And it was discussed during a committee meeting about having the employees, at least at City Hall, before they enter the building, to come in through one area and have their temperatures taken on a daily basis before they even come into the building. So I can revisit that with the mayor, and we can speak to him about getting more of these temperature scanners, because we have quite a few service department employees that clock in every day. So we can discuss that with him. And then like Director Kopfer recommended, we can have Becky send over the information about the scanners. I know some of them could be mounted on a wall, some are portable. So the city had different options like that. So we'll get you as much information as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Williamson?
Thank you, Madam President. I also wanted to ask, though, too, if these are portable systems and someone does come in and their temperature's flagged, how do you get notification to turn them away? If it's a public, if it's someone from
The
the
siren
public.
starts going off.
I can speak to, I know one of the demonstrations that came in, I didn't send out a demonstrations, Becky handled it, but there's facial recognition that goes into this. Some of these have the ability where an alarm goes off, or can actually go into a computer, so we can see who's coming in, what their temperature is. They're pretty high-tech devices. So I'll make sure Becky has that information to get that to you as well.
Yes, because my concern is if someone passes through and they're running a fever and they get through the building, it just defeated the whole purpose of this purchase. So thank you.
Which goes to the council president's point of that lobby when it's done will be nice, because there is a hard stop. Right now we have nothing. So it would be very effective to have that in there, where if they are flagged, they can't go anywhere. They can't get in. So thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions from council members at this point? Councilman Glassburn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I've seen news reports of, if it was Minneapolis or St. Paul, that is using CARES Act money for basic income for 500 of their residents. In Lorain County, I believe the city of Lorain is giving safety workers hazard pay. This Friday, the Ohio Municipal League has, I want to quote their wording on here so I'm not misstating it, a seminar for an hour that will cover requirements in the CARES Act, how to establish a sub-grant, innovative uses of CARES Act funds with other entities, and best practices, yada, yada. It seems like there are others, at least, that are exploring much more exotic uses of these funds. With the mayor's statement, which I'm not sure I understood or caught all of it at the beginning, is it your understanding, Director Kopfer, or your maybe not hope but expectation that we can use this for salary based on the most recent guidance? Because to be honest, for me, that changes the entire equation of the value of utilizing the funds for a number of these items, quite honestly.
Yes, I do believe that that we can utilize them. And I mean, I'm not even claiming all the wages. I have two different methodologies, which I showed you on that spreadsheet, that still only are about 15% of the safety wages. So I think that we have excellent backup for either method by me going through each area like I did, and then just doing safety wages. So I think that we can use the third round for that. I would prefer it, and I believe that that's the mayor's position as well. But if it isn't, I will let you know. And please, those were items we did talk about. We talked about doing up business loans and doing all these things, but they never really moved the deadlines back. So to sit there and, you know, set up a program where you're doing income guidelines or unemployment, who has need, all those things. And, you know, we have a lot of chain businesses, but we do have a lot of mom and pop businesses too. So, you know, looking at all the, you know, for businesses or residents, I mean, we were looking at all those items, but it takes a lot of administration to do it. And also the deadline is still, it has to be completely encumbered by October 20th. So the timeline was a restriction to a lot of them.
Madam Chair, I guess I'll just maybe more cleanly state, whether it's the third tranche or even the second or the first, I would be very interested. I mean, if we believe we can cover employee wages with these funds, I would be very interested in exploring using money from all three tranches to do that, as opposed to some of the items we're looking at. And maybe that's a larger discussion. And I'll just also note, and I wish the mayor was still here, I'm appreciative of this as at least a work session format, as opposed to just making a decision, when the legislation was right there. So thank you for at least initiating this conversation.
Okay, and Madam Chair, I mean, I still find it hard to believe that they can claim that all the wages for safety are COVID related, because as you can tell, we had 15% COVID calls, and I don't know if you remember, but our squad runs were down substantially in the first part of the year because people were told not to go to the hospital. So they weren't even going into the hospital. So I have problems with claiming that all the wages are, but I can legitimately say, based on the guidance and what other communities are doing, they're coming up with some sort of relationship. And I think that this is what I've presented here is more than legitimate. And I'm sure I could come up with more monies to take care of any of the first two tranches that don't end up getting spent. So I could come up with more wages that would qualify. This is just my first and second round at it.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilman Limpert.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I do appreciate the approach of tying it to what we can directly tie to COVID funds. Just I think this is going to be a moving target, but you know, I would caution against too much of an ambitious approach to try and use these funds in ways that may not really be meeting the goal of what COVID funds should be. So I think we have to be careful there. I know there's a lot of issues in some other industries that people weren't exactly provisioning PPE loans the right way or overextending to how they use those. So I think it's important to take a prudent approach if we're concerned about you know, clawbacks or, you know, being put in a negative light for future draws as well. So thanks.
Councilman Schuman.
Just real quick, I agree that we should be very conservative with how we spend this money and make sure we can tie it as much as possible to COVID. I know for a fact that the city of Cleveland put some $16–18 million in housing court hands to be handed out to people for to pay their rent, and they are still sitting on some $10 million, which they might have to give back. If we would create a program and then not use it, it'd be kind of silly. So I think our approach has been really good here. What we're trying to do, nice if we can use it to pay salaries, but again, I would be real careful about that, just to make sure that we don't get you know, have to pay it back. That could be disastrous for us. Thank you.
Madam Chair, the old saying goes that pigs get fed and hogs get slaughtered. Good approach for finances.
Councilwoman Heeman.
Councilman Schuman, I think you are correct, because even if it is just kind of like an error, right, in the news, like we just wouldn't look good that we would have to pay money back, because it would give the appearance of that we were trying to, you know, do something inappropriate when in fact perhaps we just didn't get good enough guidance. So I think, yeah, to be careful is very good, Director. Thank you.
So, Councilman Glassburn, go ahead.
I apologize, Madam Chair, for interjecting again. I'm not suggesting we do any of these exotic things. I'm saying by comparison, we are doing mild things, quite honestly. What I'm more trying to convey is, and because I don't want to create a 5-alarm fire at a later point, is I understand we got these monies at different times, but limiting ourselves to the third tranche for appropriate employee wage reimbursements is somewhat of an arbitrary number. So I just would like to really look at what is the full appropriate number, whether that's more or less than the third tranche, and then evaluate that against the rest of these things, because if we were to determine an overwhelming number of the dollars was appropriate, that makes it a very hard thing to weigh against a number of these proposed items. So, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Director Kupfer.
The two scenarios that I had in wages at the bottom of that spreadsheet, the one came to $1,356,000 and the other is $1,488,000. So between $1,400,000 and $1,500,000 is what, and this was like to the end of the year. So I think that there's a few $100,000 over the third tranche, but not a substantial amount where, we'd need, $4 million or what have you.
Councilman Glasper.
So are we saying that the two scenarios or the two items that you have listed are two different ways at looking the exact same amount? I mean, because the second item is somewhat of a simplified view that with the 15%, not all that on safety alone, that would not all pertain to, sewer revenue fund or so.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know which portions.
Yeah.
Or if there's a quick way to determine what is in which bucket. If you're looking at the complete picture. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're right. You're right. I oversimplified it, but like the ones that aren't related to police, fire, dispatch, would still be valid in the upper part. And then instead of doing all that work with each safety division, just doing an estimate or doing it based on that. I was just trying to make sure that I was within reason. So yeah, so it would be probably closer to 2 million, probably.
Thank you.
Any further questions at this point from council members? So council, if you have any additional questions that you think of between now and let's say noon on Friday, if you could get those questions to our clerk. He'll compile the questions and then he can get those over to Director Kupfer, the mayor, and any of the other members of the administrative team that might be able to best answer those questions for us. And then for the administration, I would ask if you could please have the responses to the questions that council has, if you could give those to our clerk by September 30th. Close of business is fine, but then Chuck can get those out to us and council members could then have time to read through the answers and consider those answers before our meeting on October 6th. So with that, I will ask our council clerk then to set a committee of the whole meeting for October 6th. Let's start that meeting at 6:45 p.m., which would give council then a full hour before we need to caucus and then go into our meeting, our general meeting. And we'll have plenty of time then to discuss any of the issues that comes up between then and now with the CARES Act funds, and then also to come to a consensus with council on how we want to move forward with the streaming meetings and or adding additional programs for community engagement with council. If there's no objection, we will conclude our committee of the whole meeting at 9:37 p.m. Thank you.